Welcome, everyone, to Buddha Center. It's so wonderful to be here tonight to talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities, and specifically the section on bodhicitta, where we reflect on our own suffering and recognize that every single sentient being in the universe is undergoing the same exact sufferings that we are. And we go through these practices that we're learning about week after week and after week to figure out that the most logical conclusion is for us to become a Buddha. And then we generate the real bodhicitta mind, which is this mind that day and night unceasingly, which is an actual main mind at this point, once it's generated, wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So before we get started, let's try to, the best that we can, set this motivation. And even if it's so far away from the way that we actually think, that's okay, because it will become the way that we think in dependence upon doing things like this in a contrived way. So let's just take a moment to say to ourselves that we're attending this teaching, I'm giving this teaching, you're listening to this teaching, and that is to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. It's wonderful that we're here tonight together, actually creating the causes for our happiness, creating the situation so that in the future we don't ever have to suffer again. And usually when we gather, usually when we get together with friends and we talk, we're creating non-virtue. We're talking about others, or we're gossiping. We're talking about senseless things. We're complaining about our job, and we're doing all of this stuff because we feel, oh, it makes us feel better. Oh, it'll make us happy if I can just vent. It'll make me happy if I get together with my friends. It'll make me happy if we can just tie one on, if I can just blow off some steam, if I can somehow just, create a whole bunch of circumstances and put them all together that will make me happy. And generally, when we do that, because we're not actually engaging in the causes for anything but more unhappiness, we make most of our time, when we look at it and we're honest, a waste of time. So here we are tonight, not wasting our time, not getting together to waste time, getting together to learn how to make the most out of our time, how to take the essence out of this human rebirth, how to extract what really is here that's meaningful, and how to shuck off what's not meaningful. We're learning this, and usually we reinforce what's not meaningful. Usually we try to hold on to the things that we should shuck off, and we convince each other in our conversations that we're both right, that we should, really hold on to the worldly things, and we shouldn't shuck off these things that the Buddha said that we need to, in order to really be happy. So unfortunately, most of the time we drive towards a goal of happiness and freedom from suffering, which we'll never get to because we're not actually on a road to that place. And that's what path is about. It's about a road that takes us from, it's the what we need to do, that those steps, that pathway that takes us from where we are to exactly where we want to go. And if we're looking at where we want to go and we're honest with each other and ourselves about what we want, we'd like to go to a place where there's no suffering and we were as happy as possible, then we have to make sure that we're on a path that leads to that actual result. And when we're looking at every moment, we're creating some sort of a future result because we're engaging in causes. And the causes that we're engaging in that are virtuous will lead to more samsaric happiness, and the causes that we engage in non-virtue will lead to samsaric suffering. And when we look at this word samsaric happiness, we know that that's actually suffering. So what we're really looking for isn't suffering. We aren't, when we say we want to have happiness, we don't want, happiness suffering. We're looking for like the real deal. And when we get together, usually, and I look at my friends like I'm doing right now, and some of you I can see, some of you I can't see pictures of, when I'm usually around my friends and looking at them and talking to them. And it's not for the purpose that we're doing right now. In the past, I know it certainly wasn't. Now these days, we stay inside quite a bit and practice more than anything. But when I do go out, I notice that the tendency isn't towards creating every moment, creating in every moment some sort of imprint that will give rise to what I want to experience in the future. And we know that those experiences that will, those virtues that we're engaging in, no matter how good they are, will give rise to more samsaric result if we don't figure out what this thing that Buddha talked about called emptiness is. And if we don't figure out what we're talking about these days a lot, bodhicitta, even if we know emptiness so well, we see it 100 million times, we wouldn't be able to be a Buddha until we combined that wisdom of emptiness with bodhicitta. So here we are recognizing, like everyone, like myself, everyone else is experiencing this sea of samsara. And today we'll read from Bobonka Rinpoche's beautiful book, Liberation in the Palm of Our Hands, and we'll see some of the tips in there. So I don't want to give too much of a long introduction because there's so many beautiful tips in this section on great compassion. But just to refresh everybody, we're in kind of a bubble right now. We're in the stanza where Lama Tsongkhapa introduces us to aspiring bodhicitta, introduces us to this idea that, hey, just like myself, all sentient beings are suffering. And hey, I'd like to do something about this. May I, figure out a way to generate this mind that says that I want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, and then day and night working towards becoming a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So we're talking about right now the process for which one would generate a mind that actually day and night thinks like this. This mind is called bodhicitta. And we're looking at it in this bubble of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Practice passed down from Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha, his half-brother Acharya Vasubandhu, down through the extensive deeds lineage, down through Lama Salimpa, Master Salimpa, and Lord Atisha, and then down to Master Don Tompa, and then various lineage masters. And then this teaching arrives in our laps, the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And here there's a pre-step, 6 causes, and the pre-step's a cause, so you can say 7, but you don't. You say there's a pre-step, there's 6 causes and 1 result. And we've arrived at, in terms of the causes, we're looking at number 5 right now, great compassion. And we've already gone through the pre-step of equanimity, and then the steps that get us to be able to actually get great compassion, which are recognizing sentient beings as our mothers, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, and then love through the force of attraction. And this buildup of feeling and intention that occurs comes about because we come to see sentient beings as lovable, and so lovable that we think of their happiness spontaneously, and wanting them to have happiness spontaneously, just like a mother would want her only child to have happiness spontaneously. And then, so once you're at that point where you see all beings in this case as lovable, or if you were to see a being as lovable, as someone, oh, I love you, meaning in this case, I want you to have happiness in the causes of happiness. And it's not something that you have to think about at this point in the practice. Once you've really ground this into your mind, once you've had this cognitive transformation take place, you're looking at these beings in such a way that you're looking at all sentient beings, and loving them means, I love you means that I want you to have happiness and the causes of happiness, and I want to be a cause for that. Just like a mother would want her only child to have that happiness, and you want to have just whatever causes were necessary, and and she would want to be that cause for that happiness. This is the kind of mind that you've worked up to at this point. So this is a really heavy duty way of thinking. Now you've just absolutely have this huge amount of affection for every single sentient being in the universe. So then naturally, this makes you want them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and makes you want to be a part of that. To really, really have this compassion that turns into altruism, which says, I'll do it myself. I'll do this. I'm going to make you happy. I'm going to be a cause for your happiness and a cause for your freedom from suffering. In order for that to really build up to that point, you have to then have this feeling so strongly towards every single sentient being in the universe, and this unbearable kind of feeling that would come about if they're suffering. And the fact is that they're all sentient beings, when we look at our predicament and know that we're always suffering, are always suffering. So that unbearability, if you're like a mother looking at her only child and you want to cause them to be free from suffering, that unbearability would cause you to leap. And that would make you leap into this altruism, which is the actual sixth cause for that result to occur. And that altruism that's generated isn't realistic yet. And this compassion that's generated, where you're saying, I want to be a cause for them to be free from suffering, isn't realistic yet, because unless you're a Buddha, you're so limited in terms of how to help, when to help, who to help, what time to help. Maybe I should wait 3 days to help. We're so limited in our capacity of knowing what to do. That doesn't mean that we don't try to help, and we don't use, obviously, the incredible intelligence that we have as a human to try to figure out how to help as best we can. But if we don't recognize our limitations, then that won't make us recognize our need to become a Buddha. And here, once we get to great compassion, we're so fired up about the fact that we must see sentient beings as sentient beings that are happy and sentient beings that are free from suffering. We're so encouraged by this, or enthused by this, or driven by this, or saturated by this, or this is just like this is our thing. This is what we know about. This is what has become who we are in terms of our mental factors, determining mental factors. Everything's supporting each other in terms of these mental factors. And once these all are supporting each other in a virtuous way, and all these virtuous minds are coming together, and this courage comes about, it makes no sense to do anything but become a Buddha. And that's why these concrete steps are so important to meditate upon in the order that they're there. Because just like a symphony would start out very quiet and then build up to this incredible amount of music, starting with a very small amount of music, it builds up so that each piece complements the other piece. Each of these steps is necessary for the next step to show its beauty, for the next step to show its beauty, for us to be able to have this mind that is so flexible in terms of sentient beings, because of our recognition of who they really are in terms of having been our mothers, and how kind they really were, and how confused they really are. Yeah, our normal ways are not this way. Our normal ways, push away beings that rub us even slightly wrong. And these ways attract us to everyone, no matter how they interact with us. And the more unruly a being is, a bodhisattva sees more of a need to help, more of a being in their presence who's out of control and under the you know under the you know puppet a puppet of the puppeteer of the self-grasping ignorance, um, who's really just confused at the moment. So the bodhisattva sees somebody unruly who's acting harshly, who's acting out of control, as someone who deserves their love at that moment even more, who deserves their compassion at that moment even more, because of how out of control the mastermind of the self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude has made them. They aren't the self-cherishing attitude. They aren't the self-grasping ignorance. Those are just contaminated things that aren't who they are. They're just under the control of those things. If that's who they were, they couldn't remove them. And if I'm willing to say that I can change because I have this Buddha nature and I'm proliferating Buddha nature and I have the natural, Buddha nature, and my mind's empty so that I can undergo this big, huge change that I'm saying I can undergo. And I'm trying to, you know, convince you, make sense to undergo. If I can say this about my mind, and I know that my mind can do some really wild things and make my speech and my body then do some pretty wild things. If I know that about my mind, and I believe that my mind can have this big transformation and change, then I should be able to see, and the bodhisattva sees, that there's somebody whose mind has the ability to be as pure as Buddha Shakyamuni's mind, if the right stuff is put in it and the wrong stuff is taken out of it, just like my mind. And how awful it is, the bodhisattva would think, that this person has no idea whatsoever that they're a puppet, is what I was trying to say before. They have no clue that they are just merely acting with their body and their speech, uh, funny ways, and thinking in funny ways, uh, because there's a puppeteer they don't know about, just like I barely know about this puppeteer. And that barely knowing about the puppeteer, or just even having a doubt that maybe there is a puppeteer, according to Aryadeva's 400 verses, this kind of doubt would tear samsara to pieces. And that's how powerful the things that we talk about every Thursday night are. We're talking about just saying, hey, what do you think? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure if things are intrinsically existent or not. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Just this kind of idea. Doubt has 3 types, so it's not specified. So, I'm not sure, but they're probably not. Maybe that even qualifies. That's how rare this wisdom of emptiness is. I'm not sure, but things probably are intrinsically existent. Just saying I'm not sure tears samsara to pieces. So we have to really rejoice in the fact that we have access to this material, that incredibly enlightened beings would say something like that about, that just a doubt about the mode of existence of phenomena would tear samsara to pieces. That's how rare a doubt, that's how rare the idea of emptiness is. That's how rare it is that we're sitting here and we're thinking about, do things really intrinsically exist or not? And we're talking about conventional existence, and we're talking about, conventional truth and ultimate truth, and we're saying these things, and we're actually have some interest in them. And this is just such a rare opportunity. If it's just doubting whether or not things have intrinsic existence, tears samsara to pieces. And what about some of the correctly assuming consciousness, the moving a little bit step forward in terms of moving towards an actual valid cognition? We've really able to make a lot of strides in dependence upon this information. If we utilize it, if we try to get up in the mornings or the afternoons or the evenings, whenever we have time to look at these things, if we try to do the steps that we're learning about in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, to invoke this affection for all beings, and then to, once you have that, it's said that it's simple to want them to be free from suffering. If you love someone, it's pretty simple to then want them to be free from suffering. And if you love everyone in an unbiased way, in a way that just day and night, that kind of love is there, it's pretty simple that you would want them to be free from suffering. So these are natural transitions. If we look in terms of how we normally think, even in mundane ways, even if we throw in like attached love, attached compassion, which really is all we know about, this is how our mind operates. When we love someone so much, we want them to be so happy, we naturally don't want them to suffer. And if we love them enough and we see them suffering and we see them unhappy, we're going to act immediately in any way that we can if there's someone that we really, really care that much about. If that object of our observation, of our love and our compassion is really strong enough in a mundane sense, we'll see ourselves act quickly to try to make those people happy and act quickly to try to remove the suffering of those beings. So it's not too far of a stretch to believe that if we could, I'm saying we can, but if we can generate these minds in the order that we've talked about, why wouldn't we then be able to see someone giving us a really hard time and then immediately, instead of thinking, oh, how can I get back at them, immediately think, how can I help them? I love them. My gosh, I can't believe how disturbed they are. I can't believe what the self-grasping ignorance and self-cherishing attitude is doing to that poor fool right now. I'm such a fool. I've been under this control for so long. They've been under this control likewise for so long. Look at the grip that the self-grasping ignorance and self-cherishing attitude has on them at this moment. And then we look at our minds, and when we aren't advanced, when we aren't bodhisattvas, let's move out of like how the bodhisattva would look at it. When we look at how we look at it, we can see how our minds act differently, how our minds don't react like that. So we have to first try to create a space for a realistic state of mind. And that space, Master Shantideva said, can be created by remaining like a piece of wood, just doing nothing, and then doing something in that space, having a trick of some sort, doing some breathing, doing some sort of analysis in that space that will allow you then to react as if you were a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is not going to need this space. A bodhisattva is going to see this mess and be like, compassion. But you can become closer, like this piece of wood can get smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of how long you need to sit on the piece of wood. And eventually you won't need to remain like a piece of wood. You may, because that's how you decide to be compassionate at that moment. But there won't be a moment where eventually, if we do this stuff right enough, there won't be a moment where you have to remain like a piece of wood to say, oh, this being suffering and under the control of the self-grasping ignorance and self-cherishing attitude, I want them to be free from suffering. I want them to be yeah, that's right. They were my mother. That there won't be a need eventually, if we practice this enough, to have that remain like a piece of wood and then try to create some sort of, state of mind that makes me not act like a maniac. I just won't act like a maniac. I'll act like someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama eventually, and I'll be able to know at the moment when the words are starting to come into the air and the yelling or the difficulty or the person I don't like or the TV person and the talking I don't like, when that starts, that word would trigger my compassion. That those words will trigger my love as opposed to triggering my anger. And this is how we create the opposites. We create opposite minds. We transform minds into their opposites because the opposites are the actual correct way of thinking. So let's begin. We set that incredible motivation. That's my speech on why this bodhicitta mind and why these 7 points cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment are so potent. And I dare you to do this for like a couple of months every morning and look at these the way that we're talking about them. Really have a taste, don't just taste the outside of the skin of the sugar cane, as they say, taste the inside. I dare you to really taste these, every day for a couple of months within your meditation. Really sit on these, really read through this, really get to know these, and not have some. I would dare you to do this, and I would bet there's no way you don't have something happen in terms of your effective state of mind. Your mind will work a little differently. I'm not going to say you have great compassion and love for all sentient beings, but I'm saying that there'll be something different that occurs if you do this with consistency and you come in contact with the proper information. And the information that I'm providing you with, I can assure you, is authentic, proper information passed down from my teacher to me, and that comes from these authentic texts, the Tibetan commentaries, the authentic Indian commentaries of the Tanjore, and then the root texts of the Buddha, Sutra, and Tantras. And you know that we're utilizing all of those in order to explain this. So we began with bodhicitta. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Imagine that all of the merit field in the space in front of you, all of the Buddhas, or just one Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, or any other holy enlightened being, gives you courage, that you feel has transcended suffering, that you feel has achieved a state that you would like to achieve. Imagine all of those beings in the space in front of you. Buddha Shakyamuni, or root Lama, is His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Lamas like my root Lama, Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, the extensive deeds lineage, the profound view lineage, the lineage of blessings, all of the old Kadampa masters, and all of the beautiful Tibetan Buddhist lineage, Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, and Galupa, imagining all of the incredible commentators that we rely upon within the Galupa tradition, and Lama Tsongkhapa and Kirtub and Gyaltsab and all of the Panchen Sonandrapa, Basu Chichi Jetsin, Jayan Sheba, Janji Rupi Georgi, Gonchu Jimpi Wambo, all of the Dalai Lamas, the Panchen Lamas, all of these incredible beings that we have access to in terms of words. Some of we have access to in terms of in our world, like His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and Geshe Dorje Damdula Rinpoche and Umsala Geshe Aga Rinpoche, all these beings that are in our world, and then beings that we will eventually meet with, like the beings of the 4 classes of Tantra, the highest Yoga Tantra, Action Tantra, Performance Tantra, and Action Tantra beings, and the 35 Buddhas, the protector deities. Imagine all of these beings are here in the space in front of you. They're actually here. Whenever we call the merit field comes. We just have karmic obscurations that disallow us from actually seeing all of these beings, but these beings are all actually here. Holy enlightened beings actually see them. Lama Tsongkhapa was able to actually call upon these beings and have them appear in their actual form, them actually appear in the space in front of him. And eventually we'll be able to do the same thing because we're practicing the same thing, hopefully, that Lama Tsongkhapa is practicing, that J. Milarepa practice, these same things we're practicing, hopefully, because we want happiness and don't want suffering. And if that's the case, then this is what we should be practicing, because this is what leads to that. So I say, hopefully. So we're imagining these beings in the space in front of us who have become what we will become, who can show us how to become what we will become because they've become what we want to become. We aren't looking at them as some God, some unattainable state. We're looking at them as beings who've achieved the state that we will achieve. We have Buddha nature. Our mind just now has afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. If we remove that, our mind is the wisdom Dharmakaya. If we remove that, then our emptiness of our pure mind is the natural Dharmakaya. The cessation of suffering of that pure mind is the natural Dharmakaya. All we have to do is remove the contaminants within our mind that make us not a Buddha. And the Buddhas have removed the contaminants within their mind that made them not a Buddha. If we want to be a Buddha, we just remove the contaminants within our mind that make us not a Buddha. The way that we remove the contaminants within our mind are shown to us by the Buddhas, by the extensive deeds lineage, the profound view lineage, the lineage of blessings. These beings have written books and passed down from mouth to ear to students all of these techniques that tell us exactly how to remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. Once these things are removed, then we will be a Buddha. How do we remove them? Well, we have this merit field of beings who've written books and who've passed down instructions to tell us exactly how to do it. Really, it's just so clear why we do this. We want to always connect with these beings because we always want to be on the road to happiness and freedom from suffering. So we slam imprints in our mind of these beings and their images and their greatnesses. So we remind our minds that these are the greatnesses that we want. And this is the information that we want to align with. It just makes sense. And we've said we want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And when we go out to help sentient beings as bodhisattvas, and when we become a Buddha, this is the information that sentient beings will need to align with, because all sentient beings like ourselves want happiness and want to be free from suffering. The way to achieve that is to remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. All of the Buddhas have done so and know how to do that. We want to remove it, so we need to learn how to do that. So eventually we will teach beings how to do that, and we'll be able to connect to every single sentient being in the universe because we'll have this special quality of power that the Buddha has and the ability to emanate and to actually know what the being needs, know what to say, when to say it, who to say it to, and how to say it. The Buddha knows. And when the Buddha speaks, the Buddha says it in your language and says what you need to hear. So the way that we practice run this adventure that we'll be on as a bodhisattva, and we can start now by helping others and talking about the Dharma, but we're really inept at this point. I'm very inept at this point, throwing spaghetti against the wall. I don't know what all of your aptitudes are. I'm not sure. Trying the best I can to help. I'm trying the best I can to help my mind transform. And if you're like of a similar lot as me, then maybe it'll help you too. But I'm inept. But as I become more and more clear on these steps and actually generate bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva, I'll have more skills and I'll actually be able to start before I'm a Buddha, making more of me's to help. And I'll know because of clairvoyance before I'm a Buddha, not, once I get the right concentration levels, where you all are. And then I'll know like how your minds work a little bit because of clairvoyance, and I'll really know how to help. But the way that all of those fancy things will come about is by doing things that aren't as fancy, like just imagining that I can do them, so that my mind says, boy, would I love to do this. And I need to align in all my lives with the steps that will lead me to being able to do exactly that. Wow. We're when we think about the impact these teachings can have and will have on our minds, it would be so silly and foolish not to this moment do whatever it takes to advance through these stages on this path, this beautiful path that only leads to one place if it starts at bodhicitta, and that's Buddhahood. So imagine that since you said, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, you're only wanting to become a Buddha in order to benefit sentient beings. This is the reason you conclude that you must become a Buddha when you make this conclusion in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment and equalizing and exchanging self with others. You've made this conclusion that you want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So you know that everything that you're doing tonight, you're saying, I want to do it to become a Buddha. That's one part, which is the object of attainment. But the intended objective is for the sake of all sentient beings. So when we made this declaration, and I said, even if it's in a contrived way, we said all sentient beings. So it only makes sense to share this experience with them, because you want to become a Buddha to be able to show them how to become a Buddha. And the way that we'll all learn how to become a Buddha is by relying upon these steps. There aren't other steps. There's not some other different, fancy, quicker way to do it than this. I'm sorry, that's the case. I was speaking with someone earlier today who's learning very, very new learning about Buddhism. And I said, the problem with a lot of Westerners, with a lot of folks with a lot of us is that we don't want to do the steps in order. We hear about the first step and then the second step in the Lam Rim, and then we're like, okay, well, let me practice the 8th and the 9th step. And well, in there it says maybe I should do some of the earlier ones. So let me go to 4, and let me then go to the 11th step. The 11th step is pretty interesting if, say, there were 100 steps. And then, I'll do the 99th, and let me go back to the second. This is being spoon-fed to us, folks. We don't need to get original. We don't need to be creative. Some of these things in our meditation, we can be creative if it's helpful. Not about emptiness. Bodhicitta, it's helpful. But other than that, really, we don't need to be creative. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try to make your new tradition where you combine a little of this and a little of that. Get in contact with a totally realized Tibetan master and see, oh, wow, well, that's different. That's a different kind of being, and recognize that that's not normal. They have a heart that's so big, you can't even imagine it. They have this wisdom that doesn't even make sense. They act like an alien. And then when you see that there's a being out there that's so different, then you'll know that this is it. So imagine that you share this experience with all beings. Imagine that you bring your friends, strangers, and neutrals, the way that we've learned about in the Lam Rim. Utilize these tools, 7-point cause and effect, and equalizing, exchanging self with others. We don't need to go through them. We've been going over them, but I hope you know them on your fingertips. Use these tools. Invite these beings. See how your mind is affected. Invite hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods. Invite all of them. Recognize that no one in cyclic existence is having a good time. Even those people you look at and you say, wow, they have a lot of stuff. They're not having a good time. They're enduring suffering every moment. And it's just it's an illusion. It's a hallucination that makes us see that, oh, wow, this will really make me happy. It's just suffering. We just haven't learned enough about samsara to recognize it. So we've got all the beings here, every kind there is. We've got the ones that are enlightened and the ones that aren't enlightened. And my team of the unenlightened would like to be enlightened. So we look in, we imagine as we invite sentient beings here, we're like, hey, you're having a hard time. You're kind of being a jerk. Look over there. That's a Buddha. You can become a Buddha too, just like I can become a Buddha. Yeah, I have also a lot of afflictions and a lot of stupid, crazy ways of thinking. But I look over there and I go, oh, wow, so did that being up there before, and they don't anymore. Well, how'd they do that? How did they go from like how did Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche go from like a place like where I am, I know how my mind works, to where he is? Yeah. So I just encourage all of you to taste the Dharma. Don't, like J. Milarepa said, you can't look at a food. You got to eat it. You can't just hear the Dharma. You got to practice it. So now imagine that the merit field that all sentient beings are experiencing and seeing as just pure love, pure compassion, pure wisdom, just pure inspiration transforms into the Rajagriha of Ultra Peak Mountain, where the Heart Sutra is taught, where the Buddha meant what he said, the definitive truth was taught, and the Buddha stated that nothing in the universe intrinsically exists. Everything is empty of intrinsic existence, empty of inherent existence, empty of existing within the object or being established right within the object, empty of true establishment. All of these words are used. Empty of true existence. All of these things mean the same exact thing from Madhyamaka Prasangika view. These are all just synonyms, meaning that these emptinesses mean the same thing. If one is, they're all equivalents in terms of if something is empty of true existence, it's empty of intrinsic existence. And not everyone agrees with these things all being synonymous, but we won't get into that. But the Buddha meant what he said when he said that there's nothing that you're going to come up with that's a subject, meaning like not like a subject like consciousness terms or person, subject like the subject car, the subject Buddha's mind, the subject Buddha nature, the subject emptiness. Nothing in the universe is free of this statement of empty of intrinsic existence. Emptiness is empty of intrinsic existence, because when subjected to ultimate analysis, one doesn't have a finding of it. And ultimate analysis is looking for intrinsic existence. And that's another story altogether. But the Heart Sutra The reason I mentioned this ultimate analysis, it's called rational analysis, the Lama Rinpoche translation committee. Anyway, yeah, that was funny. It sounds like a band or something. These statements that the Buddha is making in the Heart Sutra are the result of what's called ultimate analysis or rational analysis. It's called a non-finding. And this non-finding is not of existence in terms of the object. It's a non-finding of a particular mode of existence that just doesn't exist. And that's intrinsic existence or true existence. You have to study what that means. But what I'm here to tell you is it doesn't mean existence. So when the Buddha says there's no self, the Buddha doesn't mean the self doesn't exist. The Buddha means the self doesn't exist the way you think the self exists. Yes, the self exists, but the mode of existence that naturally appears to you is incorrect. So ultimate analysis finds that out and comes to find out that there's no I that intrinsically exists, no ear that intrinsically exists, no any of these things, all of these things, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no smell, etc., etc. It's talking about a specific kind of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, and appearance. It's talking about those things that intrinsically exist can't be found. Those eyes that intrinsically exist, that truly exist, right from the side of the object, can't be found. So they must, once you come out of this ultimate analysis, you must have some sort of harmony then with existence and not being intrinsically existence. And that harmony is found in dependent arising. So this is a beautiful, beautiful subject you can dive very deep into. We won't figure it out tonight or tomorrow night or next week. I've been studying this for many, many decades. Not many, 3, or so. And what this means to me means something a little bit different every year in terms of how much I allow myself to let go. And also how I learn not to let go too much. And this is the key, allowing oneself to let go, but not let go too much. And it's a very, very fine line when you look at what the Buddha is really saying, what the mode of existence of things really is, what dependent existence really is. If dependent origination and the understanding of it, if emptiness is the meaning of dependent origination, and dependent origination is the middle way, which means that it's free from the extremes of absolutism or nihilism, then emptiness is free of absolutism or nihilism, because emptiness is the middle way. Because emptiness is the meaning of dependent origination. Dependent origination is the middle way. Therefore, emptiness is the middle way. The middle way is the middle way isn't a great word to even have. You don't need that in there. The middle is free of the extremes of absolutism and nihilism. That's the middle we're seeking to try to figure out how things can exist, and the conclusion that one would make according to the great masters after coming out of this ultimate analysis where there's a non-finding is that things subjectively exist. They don't objectively exist. They don't exist right within the object. That we normally think that there's subject and object and that there's no relationship. There's a thing out here and there's a thing out here. And whereas the Prasangika view is saying that this thing out here, this thing you're naming, okay, there's a subject, which a term falls under subject. There's a term being given. There's a designated object, which is this term being given to a basis of designation out here. Okay, chair out here, term designated object. Okay, term chair. There's a basis of designation over there, a bunch of parts and stuff. And the Buddha is coming to say that that basis of designation doesn't have the chair inside it over there, that it's merely imputed, and that the designated object chair and those parts over there are mutually exclusive. Weird, right? That's a weird thought. Chair, when I say chair, I feel like it's just like that word feels like it's got a back, something to sit on, and legs. Just feel how strong that word is. Feel how much you relate to just a label. And that isn't even, labels aren't all it's about. And everyone thinks that it's just about whether I name it or not. But the name carries a lot of weight. Just think about chair. And when I say kucha, does that sound like the same thing that has a back and a seat and legs? It should, because that means chair in Tibetan. And you think, oh, well, they mean chair when they say kucha. Or whatever in your language, your current, your native tongue is. Oh, they mean, oh, you mean, oh, I see. Metu. Oh, you mean flower. Oh, they say metu when they're saying flower. Just so you know, when Tibetans want to say flower, they say metu. When they want to say chair, they say kucha. Just so you know, they're just referring to chairs. This is really how we think. It is. We believe that all of these constructions are the way that things really are. That thing's over there, and that's a chair, and I'm not going to hear anything different about it. But there is a chair over there that I can sit on, and we need to harmonize that. And that's the thing that everybody gets wrong about emptiness, is that disharmony between, there's a chair over there, but there's not an intrinsically existent chair over there that exists from its own side, that is the way that it appears to me, as like over there as a chair. And even when I say chair, I feel like wood against my back. I say comfy chair, and I'm in like some sort of cushiony thing, and I say uncomfortable chair, and I'm in like my grandmother's house in some old chair that I can barely move because it's an antique and I'm afraid I'm going to break it. And all those chairs seem so out there and real, as if I could just, feel them right now. And they're all just just saying my grandmother's chair, I can feel it like being uncomfortable, and like this, like, I don't know, like I don't know. It was just really uncomfortable, as if it's like right here. I've just made it in my mind and I feel it on my back. This is how screwy we can make things, construct things. Our generic images in our minds can be so, so real, to the point that when you say uncomfortable chair, a picture of my grandmother's chair shows up. It's wild. So the Buddha came to tell us, you aren't really thinking very clearly. I'm not going to be able to show you very, very quickly how unwell you are. But if you stick around and you start to look at this, and you start to hear about these things, and you start to say things like chair, and see what comes up in your mind as a picture, and then you look over at a chair and you see how those words feel like the wood of the chair and the back of the chair and the legs of the chair. And then when you search for this thing that has such chairness over there, and the unfindability within its parts starts to make you uncomfortable, and without of its parts starts to make you uncomfortable, you start to see the discomfort that Buddha had around, I'm having things appear a certain way, but when I subject them to ultimate analysis to find if it's true or not, I'm hitting a wall of non-finding of what I think is true. And this is what the Buddha came to tell us. And this is what can keep us out of worry. If we learn how to stop the train at things that are truly existent, then we won't say things that are truly existent are truly beautiful. Things that are truly existent as ugly, right? And then we won't, if we don't think they're, if we get rid of this idea that things are truly existent and truly existent in terms of ugly, then we won't truly want to push them out of our lives, and it won't make sense for us to hit it, because we're pushing at something unreal. We're pushing away something that's not real. When we're attached, we're grabbing at something that's a construction of our mind and not real, in terms of the qualities that we exaggerate about things we hate and things we like. because that exaggeration is built upon the foundation of an ignorance that thinks there's a mode of existence that there's not. Okay, let's go. And hidden within this is a 5 paths: the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. I think I just said 5. Okay. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature, form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness, thus Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity, no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, conscious, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin, suffering, no cessation, no suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Kala jubene jodan nengoje du jugan yi du dojen ju babalama yi bushinzi nizun kandro zo la jat zelo aga samara jasan razamara vega samara aga samara jasan razamara aga samara jasan razamara Aga samara jatandara samara avede adonga de gate paragate parasangate bedizo abagwan gonjo zonji gaye de medoje je abodoje mevodoje je wadoje jagi baje medoje danje jen gori zo agere indo jaje je wada medo mede jendo no don don ba don jin bonzo zo ji daji de dan den da de le jo. Make a mandala offering, the request for the teaching, offering a beautiful universe. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, who, as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje jodan zoje jonan la janjo bado da ni jazu ji dagi juje ji bezonan ji drola benje sanje duba jo sanje jodan zoji jonan la janjo bado da ni jazu ji dagi juje ji bezonan ji drola benje sanje duba jo. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, and before we get started, we'll read the foundation of all good qualities. And tonight we'll read it from The Blaze of Non-Dual Bodhicitta. This is something you can download for free. It's from the Tibet House, New Delhi. You can't purchase this book on Amazon or anything, but you can order it from the Tibet House, New Delhi, I believe, and you can download it for free on, I think, Bodhi Wisdom, Geshe Dorje Damdula's website, and also you can go to the Tibet House, New Delhi and download it. It's got amazing prayers. And I was looking at the translation of this, because I'm teaching Foundation of All Good Qualities coming up, doing word by word in the Tibetan and looking at each word in the Tibetan and matching it, with the English, helping someone through that. And I'm noticing that this has a lot of really excellent qualities and a lot more technical terms in it. And as we go through these studies, the technical terms are really important. So I will use the other one and this one because I love the way that the other one has the poetry of it is just beautiful. But I find I like this one as well. So I like them both. This is from the foundation of from FPMT translation. And this book has translations from a lot of different folks. It doesn't say exactly who translated. It just says the foundation of the preservation of Mahayana tradition. So whoever did that, thank you. And so we'll read it from here, and then we'll look at the specific line where, the sea of the suffering life. And then, yeah, I want to read from Pabunka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand tonight. I won't give much more commentary because it's very self-explanatory, and I want to make sure we get to it. The foundation of all good qualities, Yunten Shijoma by Lama Tsongkhapa. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. Correct devotion to him or her is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that this precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. Hold on. Takes its essence. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of virtuous and non-virtuous karmas follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful to abandon even the slightest negativity and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Samsaric splendors are unsatisfying and unreliable. Seeking them is the door to all suffering. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teaching is keeping the Pradamoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Even if I develop bodhicitta, but I don't practice the three moralities, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. Once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I have become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the gurus who show me the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. So this stanza is very similar, but we'll read the stanza that we're on. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. So may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I wish to free all sentient beings from suffering, the causes of suffering, and bring them to a state of happiness. So how do we do this? We do this by first generating bodhicitta, and then from that bodhicitta generation, we're then a bodhisattva on the bodhisattva path, and we travel that bodhisattva path, through from the path of accumulation to preparation to seeing to meditation to the no more learning, which is actual Buddhahood. So we're learning how to generate this beautiful mind of bodhicitta, how to have aspirational bodhicitta emerge. because we know in Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection that aspirational bodhicitta occurs, and then we're on the path of accumulation. And aspirational bodhicitta is a necessary mental basis for us to actually have engaged bodhicitta. And if we look at, Acharya Kamalashila's explanation of what engaged bodhicitta is, which is according to the autonomy school, we would say it's the presence of the bodhisattva vow. So in order to take the bodhisattva vow, to actually get a bodhisattva vow, to have this engaged form that Acharya Kamalashila talks about, one needs to have the aspiring form, aspiring bodhicitta. And the way that you get aspiring bodhicitta, that this stanza is talking about, that we just read, is by practicing the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down from the extensive deeds lineage, or the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice passed down from the profound view lineage. So we're learning now about the 5th step of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, which is actually among the 6 causes, the 5th cause, if we're not counting the pre-step of equanimity as a cause. So let's look at, we just read last week, Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and finished the section, saw the beautiful quotes from Acharya Kamalashila and so forth, from the stages of meditation, and we looked at that and finished that section up. And now let's look at what Pabonka Rinpoche has to say about it, about great compassion. I think it's a magnificent section of this book. I think it really shows us how to meditate, and also you'll see that it'll show us how to meditate on our own future circumstances and our own loved ones' future circumstances. So when you see this example, which you will, that's a little graphic about how you develop compassion for beings, think about that being that you feel, that poor being, the only difference between us and them is that, we are breathing. The only reason we don't have horns and fur is that we're breathing, and our next life hasn't been, our consciousness hasn't been thrust into our next life. And if we don't do something about the way our minds are now, we will be, maybe not next life, but we will be thrust into a position like the one we're going to read about tonight. And the people we love more than anything in this world will be thrust into a position like the one we're going to read about tonight. So I think it's really important. It's important for us to help us generate renunciation. All of these later parts of the book help us with the earlier parts of the book. And if we're reading the Lamrim correctly, we're reading it in circles. And it's all making each other stronger. Our meditations making our analysis stronger, and our hearings making our meditation stronger. Everything is really just strengthening each other, and we'll be able to feel it when we're doing it. Okay, here we go. This is from the great master Lotsawa, Art Engel's translation of Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. It's in 3 volumes. Michael Richards' version is 1 volume. I have both. I cut my teeth on Michael Richards' version, so I have a affinity for it. But like I just mentioned, this is more accurate. Like the translation of The Foundation of All Good Qualities in the Tibet House book, it's more accurate. This is more technically accurate. So I'm leaning into Lotsawa Art Engel's stuff a lot more when I can. Great compassion. Great compassion. So the Pabonka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, or Liberation in Our Hands, as it's translated here, is a commentary on Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And it's actually the book that changed my life. It's the book that really made me decide that there was nothing more important than this path. It was very contrived and very fake and, hollow at that time when it made me make that decision. But that decision was solid enough, as contrived as it was, to make me sit here today. And that's how much this book means to me. I knew about this book long before the Lamrim Chemo, and I think I read it before I knew it was a commentary on the Lamrim Chemo. Yeah, I read it when I was so new to Buddhism. I didn't know what was going on, but I read this stuff and was like, wow, this makes sense, and the lower realms sound really bad, and that makes sense. Okay, here we go. Great compassion is the unique and potent cause that brings us closer to achieving Buddhahood. When Geshe Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa, was formulating the portion of the outline for the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment that deals with the instructions for developing the enlightened mind, he stressed the importance of great compassion by referring to it as the root of the Mahayana path, and by explaining how the other elements of the instruction are linked to it through either being one of its causes or one of its results. In describing how great compassion is the determining factor that enables us to attain all the qualities of the Mahayana path, as well as its result. One sutra compares it to the wheel by which a wheel-wielding monarch reigns, and also to a person's life force. In one of the opening verses from his Introduction to the Middle Way, Supplement to the Middle, the glorious Acharya Chandrakirti wrote, "Compassion alone is known as the seed of the conqueror's harvest, excellent harvest, the water that makes it grow, and the means of its fruition, ensuring that it will be enjoyed and remain in existence for a long time. For these reasons, I praise compassion at the beginning." Compassion is important at the beginning of our spiritual practice because it determines that a teaching belongs to the Mahayana tradition. Like a seed, it is the foundation for the act in which we resolve to achieve enlightenment. So here we say that bodhicitta itself, the mind that aspires to enlightenment, has to have great compassion as its cause. So when we look at the 7-point cause and effect, we're in the 5th step. We have not achieved bodhicitta yet. We're learning how to achieve bodhicitta, and we're learning that we have to get great compassion to achieve bodhicitta, because to get altruism, the extraordinary attitude, we have to have great compassion. And to get bodhicitta, we have to have the extraordinary attitude. So you see how the steps have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The steps can't go 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 80, 90, 76er. They have to go in order. So it just shows us how it's important. It's also important in the middle part of our practice when it's compared to water and fertilizer. During that period, compassion enables us to generate the armor-like effort that keeps us from becoming discouraged as we engage in bodhisattva activities. Finally, compassion is important in the last part of our practice, which is like the stage of enjoying crops that have ripened. That is, once we reach the final goal of ultimate enlightenment, compassion serves as the means by which a Buddha's activities on behalf of others continue uninterruptedly. So the Buddha has no choice but to send helping bodies out because of the great compassion that is how his or her mind works. The strength of our enlightened mind is wholly determined by our compassion. The reason some bodhisattvas proceed along the levels of the path more quickly than others is also because the compassion that forms the root of their practice is deeper. Those bodhisattvas who enter the Mantrayana path seeking a swifter path and who do proceed extremely quickly by means of that path meet with success because of the power of their compassion. So here it is right here. Pabunka Rinpoche is saying, oh, you want to practice Tantra. You want to really. So it's saying that Tantra is for bodhisattvas. So that's the first thing he says. And then he says, which we can get imprints and do mantras, but really, I'm a tantric practitioner. This is for bodhisattva. And it's saying the depth of the bodhisattva's tantric practice matters in dependence upon the depth of his or her compassion. How deep it really, really is. How clean is that compassion really? And that will show how good of a tantric practitioner he or she is. There it is. It's so clear. For instance, if a child were to fall into a fire pit, his mother and father would immediately do whatever is necessary to get him out. Other family members or friends, however, wouldn't act as quickly. The reason for this is that parents have stronger compassion for their own child than others do. When you are ready to begin meditating on compassion, the following technique will enable you to develop it more easily. First, visualize the image of a sheep that is in the process of being slaughtered by a butcher. Took a quick turn there, didn't it? Yeah, Pabunka Rinpoche loves that. Okay, so now visualize a sheep that's about to be slaughtered by a butcher. Imagine that the animal's been forced onto its back as if the sky and the earth had suddenly changed places. So the animal is walking. Imagining you're this animal. Imagining the person you love more than anything in this world is this animal. And suddenly they're looking at the ground, and suddenly they're grabbed, and the ground becomes the sky, and their legs are tied. They're looking at the sky. Picture that the sheep's legs are bound with a cord, and that it has struggled in vain to free itself. Think of yourself struggling in vain to free yourself. Oh, I didn't practice enough Dharma. Should have practiced more Dharma. Now I'm struggling in vain to free myself. Oh, I can't believe the person I love more than anything in this world is struggling in vain to free themselves. It realizes clearly that it's about to lose its life. You've seen the animals taken to slaughter. You've seen your friends leave. You've seen your companions go away. You've smelled the blood. You have a good sense of smell. There's no way it could possibly escape by running away. You're bound. Lacking anyone who might protect or rescue it, its eyes well up with tears and it stares helplessly at the butcher's face. Imagine this is you. Imagine this is the person you love more than anything in this world. And tell me that becoming a Buddha isn't something you'd like to do. Having been driven to this terrible state of fear and anguish, imagine how finally the sheep is put to death by the various cruel methods used in slaughtering animals. If you should actually witness the killing of a sheep in this way, you might think to yourself, I doubt that this sheep understands what's happening. Oh, how many times have you heard this? I heard this from my own family members. They're so dumb they don't even know. Club the fish. Stab it, hit it, beat it. It doesn't know. But then consider the story of the butcher who once was slaughtering many sheep. After having killed a few, he was trying up to the next one to get it ready for the slaughter, and meanwhile he left his knife lying next to another sheep. While the butcher was occupied a short distance away, the sheep tried to hide the knife by pawing dirt over it with its hoof. So there's no question that these animals experience unbearably great fear and suffering. Now turn your attention to sheep that haven't gone to the slaughterhouse yet, and that are still grazing in a mountain pasture. Consider how the only difference between them and the ones that already met with the horrible fate just described is that their time hasn't come yet. But when it does, they too will surely meet with the same end. After reflecting in this way, generate compassion towards these animals by recalling how they have been your mother in past lives. When you have developed genuine compassion towards these sentient beings, the next step is to reflect how they have had to experience suffering in the lower states in the past and how they continue to experience now. This is done in just the same way that you contemplated the suffering of the lower states in relation to yourself. So here it is. If you don't know what you can go through, you can't possibly generate this state of mind. You must have generated renunciation to have this kind of mind generate. Continue developing compassion as you meditate, for instance, on how some of these mothers must live in hells, where they are roasted on a ground of red hot iron or boiled in molten iron. Reflect also how others are born as hungry ghosts and must suffer the torment of hunger and thirst. When you succeed in generating compassion in this way, next turn your attention to those human beings of this world who are quick to do evil deeds. Contemplate how, just as there is little difference between a sheep that is actually being slaughtered and those that are still grazing on a mountain, human beings that commit evil are no different from those sentient beings who are already dwelling in the lower states, since they themselves are certain to fall into the lower states as well. So we're like the sheep on the mountain who just haven't met our fate yet. It's so true and so clear. If we look at cyclic existence for what it is, we'll know it's disgusting for us and everyone else. After that, meditate on your mother in this life and generate compassion towards her by contemplating how she performs the causes that will bring her suffering in the future. Then reflect on how your other family members, your friends, and others devote themselves exclusively to bad deeds and moral transgressions in the course of pursuing livelihood. Reflect how, even as they endure the three kinds of suffering here in this level of the higher states, they are actively pursuing the causes that in the future will force them to experience the much greater sufferings in the lower realms. So we'll stop there. We'll read more next time. So we utilize these things that we learn about in the Lam Rim, things that we see with our own eyes, hear about the sufferings of war that are going on right now, and recognize that all of these things are happening because of one reason, and that's that sentient beings are under the control of the mastermind of self-grasping ignorance and self-cherishing attitude. And this mastermind makes some of us worse at times than others and makes the world unpeaceful. Thank goodness we have these teachings. We'll conclude. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lobsang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Very interesting how Pabonka Rinpoche builds up that image of suffering for us, just to remind us what we meditated on in the medium scope, so that we really have this disgust that allows us then to think mom. So you see, all sentient beings are our mother. Start with your mother, this person you have this closest relationship to, and think about how she'll feel then. Really powerful. These Lam Rim explanations, they really work. They hit you, and they hit you at different times because they'll mean something different. But you're thinking about the sheep at first and this poor sucker, but now you're being forced to think about that's going to be you, that's going to be your mom, that's going to be your wife, that's going to be your husband. Don't you want to do something about it? Well, you can't unless you're a Buddha. Any mistakes that I made, may they be purified by the Vajrasattva mantra. Om Benza Sato Samaya Minubalaya Benza Sato Zinabajita Dita Meva Sutogai Meva Subogai Meva Anuragi Meva Zavazini Meva Raja Zava Gamasuji Meganam Junguru Maha Bhagavan Zava Dada Benza Moga Benza Baba Mazamaya Zava Om. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jijikala Raja Mo Rama Jadaja Dunjo Rilla Ong Jo Om. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kala Raja Mo Ramo Acha Daja Tunja Rilla Ong Jo Om. May the supreme bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase forevermore. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect gurus. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond. Through this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead every single sentient being without exception into that enlightened state. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all virtue and benefit and happiness for beings, all powerful. Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara's end. And a prayer of supplication for my root teacher, Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche. I wrote, complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness in treating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood with your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you listening, and hope to see you next week. And I hope your week is full of putting virtuous imprints into your mind and full of learning how to generate this incredible mind we talk about called bodhicitta. Let's learn more about it and let's actually become bodhisattvas because we can. Why wouldn't we? Take care.